Hey, White Sox fans. It's your very best White Sox fan friend, Brett Ballantini here, and I'm hosting a Southside Sox podcast. It's not the Mothership podcast. Believe it or not, we're doing it on the farm podcast because we're dedicating it mostly toward the draft that just took place earlier this week. And first of all, before we even get to our guests, shout out to the incredible coverage team that put together really something that was pretty unprecedented for Southside Sox. 20 different profiles. I mean, obviously we've done real-time profiling as the draft goes on, but those have been consolidated into one story, haven't necessarily been individual stories. We did 20 different pieces. Hopefully you read them all. If you didn't, go back and read them all. It was Jeremy Karll who really did the yeoman's work in terms of editing and sort of bringing home everything, doing some writing on pieces as well. But he really took over for me there and brought that all home. So all your thank you notes, please direct to him. Don't direct to me. It's just going to be embarrassing to have to take that big sack of mail and send it out to South Dakota. Super Joseph Reeses, who decided not to show up. I think he's actually on minor league update duty tonight. So he's just too busy watching 4 or 5 games at a time to actually talk to us about the draft. Joe Reeses did a great job on the draft as well. Jake Mastriani took 2-3 picks. Darren Brown, newcomer, he took a couple picks, few picks. The hamster did one. I think I even did one. And then out of nowhere, we didn't think we were going to get Darren Black. We thought this was going to be the first draft. There's going to be no Darren Black. He said, forget that. I'm in. And he took those killer, what was it, 18th round, 17th round, 20th round, just the key picks. He got the key picks, let's face it.
Yeah.
So a terrific effort from everybody. And Jeremy Karll, who is with us here today, he's the one who really shepherded that for us. So thank you, Jeremy, for that. And thanks for joining us here on our draft podcast. It's Southside Sox on the farm. It's number 9. Darren Black is letting everyone else join because it's just his gig. And he's saying, all right, okay. All right, I'll let some other guys in. And guess what? Straight out of Louisville. Louisville, right? I hope it's still in Louisville. Trevor Lyons, thanks for joining us, Trevor. Some key scouting info that you provided to us. We'll get to that.
You're welcome.
Soon.
I am still in Louisville.
All right, good. All right, still mostly Eastern time zone. Sorry, Darren. Oh, yeah, that's right, Jeremy. We're half and half. Can you believe this, Trevor? This is weird. It's not just an Eastern time zone podcast. All right. Okay. The White Sox had the greatest draft in Major League Amateur draft history. It goes all the way back to 1960. That predates me. All the way back to 1960. This is the best draft that has ever been. That's according to Mike Shirley. And of course, we're going to trust him. He's the director of amateur scout. We're going to trust him. The best draft ever. But of course, what are you going to say? The funny thing is, despite how great this draft was, the White Sox don't even have anywhere to play any of these guys. They're down a team. They're going to just cram guys in Camelback. Probably going to just do a lot of BP and pitching practice. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But okay, after on the heels of this greatest draft ever, consensus in the room. How do you feel about this draft, guys?
I feel short. Everybody except a couple people were over 6 feet. So that was my main takeaway. Even guys several years younger than me are about a foot taller.
Shot right past you, Darren.
Yeah.
It's all about the training table, Darren Black.
Yeah. Kids these days.
What do we make of the fact that, the White Sox drafted 2 prep players, and obviously those are sort of the diamonds of the draft for them. 2 prep players right away, and everybody was like, man, the White Sox are changing their draft philosophy. They're going to go younger. They're going to abandon their philosophy of the past. And I understand why maybe they took the next 18 picks they did, probably based a lot on the fact that they got the 2 guys at the top of the draft. But what do you make of the fact that there was some early, hey, the philosophy's changed, and then it's like, well, not really, because there are only 2 more prep guys selected out of the following 18.
This is so obviously all the prospects that are good are up and playing with the White Sox right now, but they have a decent crop of quad A guys that are still there. So this is how you rebuild a farm system: is taking prep guys with your higher draft picks. It sounded like they might have gone high school again if Sean Burke wouldn't have dropped to them. It sounds like Shirley was pretty surprised that he actually got there. But they did take at least one more Tanner McDougal, who was born in 2003, if you want to kind of get an age of how young these guys are. But yeah, this is just one of the first steps to rebuilding a farm system that's all in the majors. And hopefully they kind of do the same, going for the younger guys in international draft pool, or not draft pool. Well, it could be a draft, but international pool that they do.
Yeah.
But this is a good first step.
Yeah, I think that's just also kind of, as Brett was getting at, the nature of the beast when you do go high school early on. With the way that the draft pools are set up, you're usually going to have to pay a premium. Some of those guys are going to be overslot guys in order to be able to get them into the farm system, because they have that leverage of being able to go to college. So that kind of forces you to be a little bit more cost efficient on a lot of the picks later. And that's why you see some of these college seniors or the older college guys that may not have that leverage, just to save some money on the back end. But as we were talking about, as Darren was saying a little bit, the White Sox position players in general are pretty set for the next, the way that they've structured these contracts and gotten some of these extensions or some long-term deals early on in these guys' careers. The Sox position players are pretty set for the next 3 years at least. So moving to a high school based at the top of the draft makes a lot of sense, because these guys are going to take a little bit longer to develop and be ready. And the Sox really don't have room for some, if they were to take like a college bat that's MLB ready in the near future, they don't really have too much room.
Yeah, not that they had the option really. I'm surprised. I was a little bit shocked that Mike Shirley remembered to pick when he did. The White Sox were picking at 22, which gave them less money throughout the draft too, and that's a consideration here in terms of who you're drafting and how much you can throw at some of these guys up top. But the White Sox picked well, there's 22. It's like it's been, I think, about 35 years since they've actually picked that low. So I'm sure they're looking around the room like, wait, is it our turn yet? He kept hitting the buzzer, and the commissioner was like, dude, just chill. You got to wait to 20. You got to go after the Cubs. What's going on? No outfielders taken high. Now, is this just because the White Sox figure we're just going to put catchers in the outfield? We're going to put pitchers in the outfield. We're going to put front office staff in the outfield, so they don't really care about focusing on outfield high. It struck me interesting. Obviously, the two guys they chose, it seems just like you referred to in Burke in the third round being still being there. It seemed like Kath as well, is like they were a little surprised in the second round that he was there. So they sort of like had to take him, even though they sort of duplicated two guys at the top of the draft. Surprise at all? No outfield high or prep, or is that not that big a deal?
Well, speaking of duplication, at least they weren't the Angels taking only pitchers. That was pretty ridiculous. Mike Trout's never going to get help.
The 10th rounder, Andy Peters, out of Morris High School, my high school, is going to struggle with 19 other guys entering the system at the same time as him.
Oh gosh, but
they're going to
not why you're listening.
They're going to get a complex league team that's just pitchers. Perhaps they're going to get a third team that's just pitchers. Yeah. They're going to develop more Otanis. All right, let's quickly, before we're going to break at some point, but I'm going to give our captain of coverage here, Jeremy, a chance to actually speak here. Jeremy, give me your, it can be the number one guy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be some sort of like sleepy pick or something, but who's the guy who jumped out of the draft who you sort of like? Obviously we all like the first rounder most, right? Whatever. But in terms of this group of guys where it's all just sort of a clump after, first 2-3 picks, who's the guy who stood out for you? Jeremy is, we cannot hear him. So how about this, Jeremy? He's leaving and he's coming back. So this is nice. This is like, we always have a cool, it used to be pets. Pets used to just crash every podcast. And lately it's been more like technical difficulties, like me when I decided not to plug my microphone in and forced Darren forced me to yell at him because I didn't have my microphone plugged in. That was a good highlight. And then we had some dance music once. That was cool too. So, oh, wait, here, I got to let Jeremy back in. We're going to see if he can speak. But otherwise, you guys are on the clock. You guys are going to be thinking about who your guy is. Now, we're going to give Jeremy a chance to actually speak, if we can hear him, about his sleeper pick. And it's going to be a good one now because we've been waiting. Yeah, it looks like he is still, he's connecting to his audio. See, look, this is the professional podcast that you looked for from SB Nation and Southside Sox. And I'm laughing at myself, Jeremy. I am not at all making any light of any technical difficulties because we have them every podcast. But you can just shout out whenever you wish to see if we have your audio. Oh, it looks like maybe we still have some. We may still have some audio issues, and this is not so good. Oh boy. Well, Jeremy, you're welcome to keep trying to come back in. Otherwise, you will be with us in spirit for this podcast because you really are the guy who deserves the most credit for the great coverage that we did. Really unprecedented here in 2021. And you really do deserve to actually have some time to speak. But if it doesn't work out, we will get you on a podcast as soon as possible. And you are welcome to just wear funny hats, put a crazy shirt on, just to, contribute in that way and just in a kabuki sort of way, because otherwise, I'm afraid the audio probably isn't working. But in case you want to keep working on it at all, Trevor, Darren, you can hop in with your sleeper pick.
So I just based off of reading, obviously the first three picks are what they are. They seem pretty great. But just reading about Tanner McDougal, he's the youngest guy they drafted. As I said earlier, 2003 was the year he was born. So he's turned 18 this year. He's 6'5", and is already throwing mid-90s, and he apparently has a pretty good curve and slider. And just knowing that he has that advanced breaking pitches already is pretty decent. He's 6'5", so I'm guessing that low mid-90s is going to go a bit higher once he fills out his frame, works with the strength and conditioning guys in a major league level instead of, with the high school level, which is probably very different. But just really excited to see a young projectable arm. Hopefully they are able to sign him because he is out of high school. He's going to Oregon. Right. Or Oregon. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce Northwestern states, but he looks great. Hopefully it works out. But if money becomes an issue, obviously they got to go the first two guys. But hopefully he sticks.
Yeah, and he's a guy that our Dan Victor long rumored to actually appear on one of these farm podcasts. But we are on number 9, and we haven't seen him yet. We haven't even seen Venus Victor, his dog, on this, and actually she's got the invite. I think I've invited her more times than I've invited Dan. But he reached out to, I forget on Twitter what he tweeted out, but his coach, or I forget exactly who it was, but maybe it was a scout, had some really high praise for his competitive preparedness. It does sound like there was some sort of wanting to hype McDougal up a little bit as like ready and legit. And I don't know if that's just to get the money that he needs to get or what, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And, then it's just a matter of, obviously the White Sox decided to select a prep guy in the 5th round, knowing that money might be limited for a reason. So hopefully they are gonna earmark a little bit of dough. Trevor Lyons has been feverishly preparing for this podcast. I'm going to give him just a couple more seconds to prepare, because right now we are going to take our break, because I don't know where else do we break. We're just talking about the draft and we're just zooming through it. So we will be back in just about a minute. If you're watching this, boy, you're going to just snap your fingers and we're going to be right back. Hey, White Sox fans, Brett Ballantini, your favorite White Sox fan in the whole wide world. I'm hosting, once again, go figure, Southside Sox on the Farm podcast, number 9. It's not really too much on the farm. We're really talking draft. Guys who are going to them, they're headed to the farm right now. They packed their overalls, they packed their boots, they packed their hat. Trevor wore his hat. Darren didn't wear his. He's still waiting for the Cannonballers hat. I don't know what's going on with that. Once he gets a Cannonballers hat, that team's going to start winning. We left off with all our favorite sleeper picks, I guess we could say. Darren, he's sandbagging us a little bit because he picked a 5th rounder, but that's okay. There were no rules here. Trevor, tell me the guy that jumps at you. I have a feeling I know who it might be, but tell me who jumps out at you as sort of the White Sox sleeper pick or your favorite pick from this draft.
Yeah, I don't know. He's my favorite pick because I have buddies that played against him this whole year that love him. So Fraser Ellard, their 8th rounder out of Liberty University, which is in the same conference as Bellarmine, just shot a quick text to a bunch of my buddies. And I do remember even prior to the draft, one of my good friends was talking about this lefty closer out of Liberty that he said was the nastiest guy in the whole conference. Throws from low 3/4 arm angle at 93, 95, with obviously coming from that arm angle, kind of Aaron Bummer like, has a lot of sink on his fastball, and he'll drop down even lower to more of a sidearm at 90 to 92 with a wipeout slider, according to them. Hides the ball well. They said it kind of jumped on him, and he dominated Bellarmine. And then the other notable thing about him that y'all will like is they said after his last warm-up pitch, he'll take the rosin bag and chuck it straight down onto the mound at about 90 miles an hour, quote, like a psychopath. So
that's all I care about.
A little intimidation even before stepping into the box.
I don't care about the
playing
digits.
The best team in the conference.
I don't care about track, man. I don't care about any of that. I just want to know the guy chucks the hell out of the rosin bag, does something nutty, does like a Mad Hungarian thing, like the Mad Hungarian, Al Haborsky, or a number of other guys. And hey, it's got some shtick. And why not? If you're an 8th rounder, you probably need a little shtick.
He's a senior guy, so he's kind of a cost saver, you would think. Not going to be a huge bonus guy, but sounds like he has some good stuff. And then if you do want to get into more of the TrackMan type stuff, I know Darren talked a little bit about McDougal. My guy Luke Smales from Dugout Metrics, shout out to Luke. He has some good data on both him and their 20th rounder, saying that they're super. For the advanced analytics community, they have very high spin fastballs along with high spin breaking balls. I think McDougal's was over 3,000 RPMs, which is off the charts. And then their 20th rounder out of TCU, what is his name? Halen Green.
Yeah. Another 50.
Also has some great spin rate and some advanced metrics that are based on Luke's pitch data models. One of the top arms out of college.
Second best arsenal, according to Luke, behind just a much more heralded UCLA pitcher, I believe. And that's no small thing. I mean, as he pointed out in what he tweeted, relatively small sample size, but still, I want to say it was like 200 or more pitches. So not nothing. And again, for a 20th round guy, if we were talking about like we're splitting hairs, your first rounder or something, might be like, okay, that's a small sample size. You really want to throw an extra million at the guy because of that. We're talking about a 20th rounder. You sort of like almost stole a guy who maybe would have ended up being undrafted free agent, a contract for somebody. It's looking sort of clever. And I don't just say that because the guy's a horn frog. I would, but the fact that Luke backed it up with some good data, it's pretty awesome. And I think, Luke went on even to say that, again, this rumored Dugout Metrics podcast I've heard about somewhere that I think used to run on Southside Sox, but
we need to get back at it.
Yeah. It's been a tense season. I've forgotten what podcast we had and what we didn't. So maybe that didn't actually run on Southside Sox. You can message me afterward, Trevor, and tell me more about this Dugout Metrics podcast I heard about. But what Luke
message Luke too.
Yeah, that's Luke. Yeah, he's probably the culprit. It's his fault. You're showing up. It's Luke's fault. That is a jerk. Okay, but when he's not tweeting stuff about his precious TrackMan data. No, but what he pointed out too, I think, was, if I haven't completely lost my train of thought, is I think he connected that to the proposition that he might actually be able to move through the system. Though, I mean, again, at TCU, Halen didn't exactly, he didn't like the word on fire, but he seemed to make a connection and said that there's a chance, I guess a chance for any one of these 20 guys, but there's a chance for him to maybe move a little bit more aggressively through the system based on what he saw. But, I'll let him speak for himself on a future Dugout Metrics podcast if it actually does run on the Southside Sox network. Okay, well, that was naturally, he's a horn frog, so he was probably the guy I was going to pick. But you stole my thunder very nicely there, Trevor. That's fine.
Shoot.
One guy that jumped out at me, though, as well, and this is a sucker punch, I know, because I'm going more off of numbers and what the guy's performances was. And it seems to me, I think I even suggested this within our group Slack during the draft. And it seems like a guy may have already peaked, but a guy that stood out to me being somewhat undersized, but just sort of getting the job done. I think the 6th round pick, Taylor Broadway, as a guy who might be able to come in and get a shot to close right off the bat and, maybe see what he does with it. Maybe he ends up being a Zach Thompson kind of guy who really doesn't ever really sort of get past where you need him to get. But as I wrote him up, I only think I did 2 or 3 this year, but as I wrote him up, I thought, man, this guy, he's got some pretty nice. I know numbers sort of don't mean anything. It's like more the TrackMan stuff. It's more the potential. There was the guy on Twitter who was yelling about the Bradley pitchers who both had like 450 plus ERAs. Why are we drafting? It's like, well, geez, if it was only just about college ERAs, especially given these last couple of years where you have like 50 innings, if you're lucky to go off of, like 20 innings to go off of, you're going to have to sort of make some other stuff up based on these last couple seasons. So we can't get too up in arms about it. It really isn't about just the numbers, but for a guy who had some pretty nice numbers, that guy sort of jumped out at me. I just went
any relation to Lance.
Thank goodness. No, but the thing is, I think I want to say, I might be getting my guys mixed up. Only 20 players, but it's still easy to get confused. I believe his dad is a professional athlete, professional bowler.
Oh, okay.
So not Lance Broadley, but professional. This guy, I think this is a guy also who was born on my 30th birthday. So Darren's always mentioning things about age, like, he's about to die. This guy born on my 30th birthday. So I'm going to go to sleep now. It's getting a little late for me. So you guys just bring this one home. Oh, okay. So no concern. The balance of high school and college, we shouldn't necessarily look, first of all, it's a 20-round draft. I don't know if this is the way it's going to go going forward or not. It may be, but I mean, it's still an anomaly compared to everything up until last year. So the balance of it being, would this be 80% college players? We really look at this more having to leverage some of that cost savings more than like sort of blowing it philosophy wise from the organization of like, oh, they're still scared to go too young. What's the takeaway here? I know we touched on it a little bit, but give me both of you guys takeaway on that.
Sure. So I think the main takeaway is that they went high school, and then they again took Sean Burke, who they didn't expect to be there, and then a college guy, and then high school again. So the top 5 rounds are pretty young. Even Sean Burke actually has a year of eligibility left, or 2. I'm not sure how NCAA is going to continue with the COVID pandemic rules they have. But after that, there's quite a decent amount of 5th-year seniors. Those are guys that are coming out. Like they can't go back to school, so they're not going to cost that much. And what matters is the top guys. Like we all look at the stats about the White Sox having X amount of first rounders on their team. And so that's just kind of how you got to look at it like this. Yeah. The top picks were high schoolers. So they were going young, and then they have to supplement. I mean, it's 20 rounds. Yeah. It's not 40 where you can waste some picks on Larry King's grandson or anything like that. Though I do kind of miss the ACE program pick. That was always fun. Yeah. But I would say that this draft is young, and then they just have to supplement what they have. And then I'll probably expect releases from Kannapolis, Winston-Salem, once they actually get signed and start going through the system. But it'll just depend on how the top guys do. Maybe they'll find a guy that's later on and for the bullpen, a 5th-year senior guy. But high school, year of eligibility left, high school is what people should be paying attention to.
Trevor, does that check out with you? Makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And also the fact that we were talking a little bit earlier, how their first and second rounders are kind of similar, both left-handed hitting as of now, middle infielders. I don't think that matters whatsoever, especially considering the fact that these guys are high school guys. I consider high school guys to be more of dart throws. Even in the first round, you have a super, super high ceiling. with all these guys compared to a college, more polished player, but they're so far away. There's so much that could happen, whether it be trades, whether it could be injuries, anything like that. And also kind of noteworthy, a lot of the super data driven teams prefer younger high school guys that are young for their class. And both the first two picks are actually kind of on the older end of the spectrum, old for their class. But I do really like the way that they went, from everything that I've read and seen about Montgomery and Kath. Montgomery's a 3-sport athlete. So someone like that, I've seen it in college. When you get a guy that starts to focus on baseball specifically for the first time, there's a chance that he could absolutely blow up. And in a year or 2 years, this could be looking like an absolute steal at number 22 overall. And Kath was also kind of a late bloomer. He wasn't really on anyone's radar too much, as at least not as a top 2-round pick. And then I was watching a video that he was interviewed in, and he talked about how he went from 3 workouts a week to a more structured workout plan with speed training and 5 workouts a week. And that seemed to be kind of the switch flipping. He said he improved his 60 time from a 7.1 to a 6.7, which is insane. So if he can, continue some of that momentum and keep getting better at that kind of a crazy rate, the sky's the limit for a guy like that too.
And we got some interesting feedback on site when we're talking about like comps, especially in the first round. You're always comping guys, and I think Corey Seager's a guy who came up a lot for Montgomery. It's like, okay, and I get it. You just take all this stuff with a grain of salt. But let me throw another one out there, and it speaks to your point, Trevor, and that is a guy that we know pretty well who's our shortstop right now, focused on one sport, was drafted, went into the White Sox system, and didn't take off insanely. But Tim Anderson is a guy who was a 2-sport player and arguably as good or better in basketball. Took off once he really picked up his pace once he got baseball focused specifically. And I'm guessing that Tim Anderson's attack toward the majors is not in any way, just with the leaps and bounds that have been made in just 5-6 years, anyway as structured as what Montgomery's is going to be in terms of the coaching he's going to get and the guidance and the instruction. Another thing that came up a lot, Kean Barnum being the last prep guy picked in the first round, 2013, like, that's scary. But I mean, come on, it's a first baseman. I mean, it's obviously it's a completely different animal. It may turn out no differently. Montgomery may get no closer to the majors, but I think he gets a lot more of a running start than Kean Barnum ever did, just being a first baseman. And obviously, again, 2013, that's like 8,000 years ago in sort of training mentality, time. It might as well be a whole different era. It might as well be the dead ball era, right? So you can't really make those comparisons in any way. One thing I'm looking for before we get to an actual little bit of minor league talk, I'm looking forward to, I'm not sure if Fraser Ellard is one of those 4th-year guys where he's basically got nowhere to go, so he has to sign. But if he is, I'm looking forward to him just insisting on $10,001 instead of just $10,000 minimum. I'm just looking for him to just hold out for something really goofy because he seems like he's a little bit off. I'm looking forward to seeing just on the list of all the signings where he's just like $10,000 in one, just cause.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking
forward
to.
Set the precedent.
Yeah.
Honestly, for an 8th rounder, any publicity is good publicity. So if he can do something like that, might as well.
He will demand fresh new rosin bag every inning because then he can, commence to destroy it. Okay, guys. Also, go ahead.
Sorry, Brett, but one last thing I had for Colson Montgomery, our first rounder. One of my buddies that played with me at Bellarmine is now coaching for the Du Bois County Bombers in Colson Montgomery's hometown. Okay. That's a college summer ball team. And he said that Montgomery took batting practice with him a few times and was just a different animal completely from any of the college polished guys on their team. You could tell it was just different coming off of his bat. And also, one maybe more negative memory of Colson's, I'm sure, and it might still be a sore subject, but apparently when he was a sophomore in college, a sophomore in high school, state championship game, pop up to him dropped to lose the game, to lose the state championship.
Wow,
But apparently he won the state championship this past year. So maybe it's all good.
I'm not superstitious, but any of you listeners who are, just rewind or pretend that didn't just happen. That's here. Spoken like a guy who's one of the profiles he did is exactly 30 years younger than him. Spoken like that. I didn't know Colson was a name, and in fact, I think there were 2 Colsons in the first round. I think that's true, unless I'm really freaking out. Go figure. Colson. Okay, guys, I'm going to hit you with this, and I know you're not prepped for this. We didn't talk about this earlier, but there's a 21st player. A 21st player in this draft. He's already in the system. He's already moved rapidly up the system. He's hitting dingers. He's smiling. He's unbuttoning his jersey down to his belly button. Eloy Jiménez or something. What can you guys tell me about him? Is it a surprising he's moving so far up the system? And when should we expect him on the south side? And how effective is he going to be right off the bat? Eli, I think Eli. Well, maybe you guys haven't heard of him.
I would say probably early 2023, maybe. He seems like one of those guys, but exciting. That's the ultimate trade deadline acquisition, I guess. Hopefully it's not the only one, but I got a feeling absolutely stoked to watch him in a White Sox uniform again, because he is a fun hitter to watch.
And this did sneak up, Darren. This snuck up faster than we thought. I mean, some of us were saying, including Eeyores like me, some of us were saying, he might not or maybe should not play this year. And of course, none of us, I think, thought he was going to be itching to play like at the All-Star break or maybe even prior to that. This is a pretty remarkable recovery.
So, I mean, I always thought he was joking whenever he said he was getting close. So I'm pretty excited that he's actually there by now. But I mean, if he's coming up soon, maybe they don't even have to add anybody. I don't know.
Oh, here the rationalization's already beginning. Okay, in the spirit of Trevor Lyons assigned to tell us a story about our first rounder dropping a state championship game. Pop up to lose the game. In that spirit, let's end on a really good note. Okay, assuming Eloy Jiménez will be playing the outfield, and he is going to be playing the outfield, does he get hurt again this year?
In his first game back playing outfield, he committed an error.
But he stayed intact, Darren. That's the key. He's learning.
I just play him at DH, please. Andrew Vaughn looks fine in left.
Do we have a crunch though when Yasmani comes back and presumably will not at least be able to initially catch? Maybe, again, I'll be the doomsayer and say maybe he won't be able to catch the rest of this year. Does that create a situation where Eloy just has to sit? Is it worth? Okay, Darren, let me pose this to you then. Does he sit or does he play left field?
I think, well, when we're talking about Yasmani, knees always, for catchers, always just are not a great subject. So I agree that he's probably not going to come back and catch right away. But then again, they have such a big league. If they keep that, maybe they can just kind of slow walk it. So he gets ready to, once you come down the stretch in October or September, October, you're probably going to be catching a lot more often than he had been previously.
Okay.
But it's the best. Yeah, sure. It's the best lineup first. And they've already proved that they don't really care about defense. So I know that's how they're going to play it. And so I don't think Andrew Vaughn has done that well against righties, if I remember correctly. So if it's righties, I 100% Eloy left. And then I don't know if Robert's coming back this season or not, but then you have Engel in center, and then maybe you have Engel play 2/3 of the outfield, and Eloy just kind of stays put, hopefully. Honestly, he should just watch Andrew Vaughn often and just watch how he plays left. Very kind of lackadaisical. Not that that's bad. Andrew Vaughn isn't a speedster and needs to dive all over the place.
But he's also not dead, so that helps too.
Yeah,
He's also been caught in the fishing
healthy.
net. I like Darren. I think you may have coined the second half slogan for the pocket schedule. White Sox 2021 already proved that they could care less about defense. I like that. That's very snappy and it probably also apt. Okay, Trevor, you of the fabled this legendary story that probably isn't true about dropping a fly ball in a state championship game. All right, what's your call on whether or not, or presuming Eloy plays in the outfield, will he survive the season intact?
Yes, that's my call. I don't really have anything to back that, but that's my call. I obviously in a perfect world stick him at DH, but like you said, yeah, if Grandal can't catch, that creates a major logjam, especially now that Vaughn is starting to heat it up even against right-handed pitching. So I think, like Darren was saying, if we can slow play Grandal and stick Eloy at DH until Grandal is ready to catch, that would be the ideal situation. But if for some reason he's not able to catch throughout the playoffs, I think Eloy has to be out and left, and you may move Vaughn to right field against left-handed pitching. I don't know. I mean, he's played all over the place. He's played left field, right field's a little bit more of a beast, but like Darren said, they've proven that they don't really care much about defense.
Yeah, well, as long as he can stay out of the fishing net and off the wall, and maybe he can. You know, the eighth time is the charm. All right, for Darren Black, our regular on the farm guy, Trevor Lyons, crashing it, wearing the cap, telling these crazy legendary stories about guys dropping pop flies in a state championship game. And for in absentia, more or less, Jeremy Karll, who I believe has ascended up to heaven with Eloy, taking Eloy's spot as Eloy comes back down to earth and is playing in Charlotte now. Thank you for listening, as always, watching sometimes, reading Southside Sox. We'll be back next week with another On the Farm podcast. And there's a rumor Dugout Metrics might even be back. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll be talking again to you very soon.